right. I hope everyone enjoyed that little intro song, a little throwback.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the A Stronger Community webinar, Engaging YES Alumni and Students with Disabilities. We are so excited to be here with you again. Are you excited, Gloria?
I'm always excited.
I'm like 100% excited. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
My name is Hannah, and I'm the YES Program Coordinator at Iron USA.
Hi, my name is Gloria, and I'm the YES Program Manager at Iron USA. And today, the goals of the webinar are really to motivate YES students and YES Abroad students and alumni with disabilities to participate in projects and activities in their communities and increase knowledge about organizing inclusive volunteer projects.
Yes. And Gloria, I have so many reasons to be excited about this webinar.
I feel like you're always excited.
I am.
Yeah, generally. Yeah.
But there's so many reasons to be excited specifically for this webinar.
Okay. I'm excited too, but why don't you share some of those reasons?
All right. Well, first of all, we have an amazing panel of speakers today.
Okay.
Yes, an amazing panel. I don't want to give away too many details, but an amazing panel of speakers. And we are almost we're approaching International Day of Persons with Disabilities on December 3rd. So this webinar is actually not just a webinar. It's like preparation.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's good timing. Yeah.
Good timing.
Okay. I'll admit that those are some pretty exciting reasons.
Thank you.
But before we get started, let's go over again a quick review of some of the features in the room so that all the attendees can navigate and participate seamlessly. Welcome. Again, please check your chat box. Make sure you can get to your chat box and change your settings to all panelists and attendees.
Yes.
The default setting is all panelists, which means we get to see all of the great chat settings or all the chat messages that come in, but not everybody else will, right? So if you're joining us, we see Rebecca is here, Saad, Salma. You want to just do a little hello, maybe share where you're watching the webinar from. We're so excited to have you join us today.
Yeah, and if you're watching us from Facebook Live, please feel free to also comment where you're watching from.
Yeah, those of you on Facebook Live, we also have behind the scenes our intern here who is going through the comments and questions, so she can definitely be keeping her eyes out for all the activity on that end. Hi, Rebecca, joining from Serbia. That's awesome.
Hi, wow. Amazing. And we are recording this webinar, so if you missed something or you just want to watch it again, you can visit yesprograms.org and our YouTube page to watch it all over again and again and again.
Great. Another great feature that we have is polls. We are definitely interested in getting the opinion of some people who are participating in the webinar today. So I'm going to launch this quick poll. And it's a question asking, who are you? Are you a YES student or alumnus with disabilities? Are you a YES student or alumnus interested in learning about persons with disabilities? Are you a YES supporter with disabilities? Or are you a YES supporter interested in learning about persons with disabilities?
Oh, we have some responses coming in already.
That's awesome.
Again, if you're joining us from Facebook, please feel free to take the poll. Just by writing your comment or answer, commenting your answer.
Yeah,
right on Facebook.
Chat, yeah.
Yeah.
Send us some likes, some hearts.
Yeah, send us some hearts, likes. Please also, if you're watching on Facebook, please feel free to share this webinar with your own Facebook buddies so that they can watch as well. We think this topic is extremely important, so the more ears, the better.
Awesome, awesome.
Wow. Okay, so we have a lot of YES supporters interested in learning about persons with disabilities. Amazing.
Yes, then you are at the right place.
At the right time. I just had to add that.
Right place at the right. Awesome.
Nice. How are we doing over there? We have Abby, our intern. You can't really see her where she can come, but she's over here controlling our Facebook center here. Nice. So again, thanks for joining. Should we go into our first speaker?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Because I'm.
Yes.
What am I? Excited. So first, we have two very special guests from MIUSA joining us today. MIUSA stands for the Mobility International USA. They were founded in 1981 and is a disability-led nonprofit organization headquartered in Eugene, Oregon, USA, advancing disability rights and leadership all over the world. MIUSA works to empower people with disabilities to achieve their human rights through international exchange and international development, and particularly with YES, and provides training and support for our YES students during their exchange in the US. How awesome is that?
They're pretty great.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the reason why like a lot of the YES community actually is already aware of MIUSA, loves MIUSA, and we're so happy to have the CEO and a program specialist from MIUSA joining us today. So we will be showing there's a nice little dynamic duo going on with MIUSA this morning. But before we get into that, we want to go ahead and launch this question to you. How familiar are you with MIUSA?
Yes, another quick poll just to get a gauge on how familiar people are. Okay.
Nice. Very familiar. Okay.
Yeah. Great.
Thank you.
That's cool, Rebecca. We're glad you were able to join us.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. We have the poll votes coming on in.
Yeah, and just remember when you're chatting, as Gloria did mention before, please make sure you change your settings to all panelists and attendees, or some people it's to everyone, so we can see your chats rolling all in.
All right.
Okay, so while you're taking that poll, we have Susan Siegel, she is the CEO and co-founder of MIUSA. As the CEO and co-founder of MIUSA, Susan is an internationally recognized expert in the area of international educational exchange and leadership programs for persons with disabilities. Susan is a wheelchair rider and has had a personal and professional commitment to disability rights and women's issues for more than 30 years. That's a lot of years. She has co-authored numerous publications in the area of international exchange and international development opportunities for persons with disabilities, and co-produced several award-winning videos. She's lectured throughout the world on a variety of topics relating to inclusive development, international exchange, and disability rights. Now, Susan could not be with us today, but she did something really special.
Okay.
She put together an amazing video to kick off our webinar.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think we should
that's really great of her.
We should watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just before we dive in, for our poll, we have that most people are very familiar with MIUSA and their work. Okay, great. And we have some person who's never heard of MIUSA, but excited to learn more. Awesome.
Nice.
So even if, I want to say that I feel like I'm familiar with MIUSA, but there's still a lot that I can still learn. And what better way than through people who work on their staff and work very intimately at their organization.
Amazing.
Awesome.
So we're going to go ahead and share that video to kick off this webinar. And thanks again for everyone joining. And welcome to our Facebook Live viewers. And so introducing Susan Sygall.
Hi, my name is Susan Siegel, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Mobility International USA. And I want to say a special welcome and a special thank you, which is American Sign Language that I'm using to really welcome you, all of you, to this webinar. I want to tell you a little bit about myself, that I had a study abroad experience, and I call myself a wheelchair rider. And I had a chance to study in Australia for 1 year as part of a Rotary scholarship. And it was during that time when I was in Australia that I asked myself two questions. I said, where are all the people with disabilities? I was only one of 3 students with a disability, and I was the only international student. And I realized, because I had such an amazing year studying in Australia, that there really needs to be more people with disabilities to have this amazing opportunity to be a global leader and to gain the competencies that you get from studying abroad. And my second question was, I really think that people with disabilities disabilities are part of a global family. And disabled people and their non-disabled allies have to work together so that people with disabilities from all over the world really have the same rights and opportunities as non-disabled people. And during my year of studying abroad, I got to travel around many countries, and I realized that working together and being part of the same family and sharing experiences, sharing strategies, it's the only way that we're going to make change. And it was from those experiences that I co-founded Mobility International USA. So I'm hoping that many of you around the world who are listening to this will also get excited about your ideas on how you're going to change the world. And maybe many of you will also start an organization or start a new initiative to ensure that people with disabilities around the world have the opportunity to have the same rights and opportunities as non-disabled people. One of the ways that Mobility International USA, sometimes known as MIUSA, is working with the State Department so that we can increase the number of people with disabilities in all types of exchanges: volunteering abroad, researching abroad, working abroad, interning abroad, and studying abroad. And later, Olivia from Mobility International is going to be live on this webinar to talk to you about some of the opportunities. One of my favorite parts of the YES program is when the students with disabilities come to Eugene, Oregon for about 5 days. And I'm so excited always to meet them. They're always such bright, smart, amazing young people with disabilities. And during their time in Eugene, they get to do experiences that maybe they've never done before. People in wheelchairs, people who are blind, people who are deaf, riding bicycles, volunteering maybe at a place that helps grow food for people who need food in the community. Also learning about disability history, about the Americans with Disabilities Act, and how you can request accommodations. Because one of the things about being in the United States is because we have the laws, you can get things like sign language interpreters and materials in alternate formats and note takers. And so how do we as people with disabilities request the accommodations that we need so we have the same chance and the same opportunities? And perhaps my most exciting thing is also learning about disability pride and disability history and how disabled people around the world are really working together to make changes. And so I hope to maybe meet all of you at some point, but a special hello to the students who've come to Oregon. And for those students without disability, you too can be a change maker by working and supporting other people with disabilities and getting involved with disability organizations in your community. There are disabled people's organizations in every country of the world, and I hope that many of you through your studies will look at disability rights issues and look at ways that you can volunteer and you can help build the pipeline of disability activists, which includes both disabled and non-disabled people, because we need allies as well for the disability movement to be strong. One of the things that I really would like to ask each and every one of you is to tell your friends about the YES program. Every year there are a few thousand people who come to the United States on these State Department programs, but still a very small percent, in my opinion, are people with disabilities. And we're looking at people with all types of disabilities, people with physical disabilities, mental health disabilities, visual disabilities, hearing-related disabilities. We want to increase the number of people with disabilities coming on the YES program. So I hope if you have a cousin or a relative or know of a place where disabled people go to school or work or an organization, that you will be an ambassador for the YES program. So next year when we have our group of disabled people who are coming here for the YES program, the number of disabled people should be close to 20% of the entire population of YES students, because there are actually close to 20% of people with disabilities in every population in every country. So in closing, I just really want to thank everyone at the State Department. I want to thank all of you, the YES students around the world who are doing such an amazing job and changing the world. And I really hope that through this webinar and listening to the MIUSA staff person, Olivia, tell you about some of the opportunities that are possible, that we will have a lively discussion. And I just really want to thank each of you for being an ambassador and for making the changes so we can have a better world, because I know it is up to people like you who are going to really create a world as it should be. So thank you to each of you, and I look forward to meeting some of you someday.
That was amazing.
Yeah, that was really great.
Very heartfelt. Thank you so, so much, Susan, for doing that for our YES students and alumni. I mean, she's been doing this for over 30 years, and it's just so amazing.
Yeah, I think particularly the point I really appreciated was where she was talking about the importance of recruiting and promoting the YES program to students with disabilities, so we can get that representation up to that goal mark of 20%.
20%. Yeah.
And you know, exchange is challenging. So sometimes you just need one person to tell you that you can do it and to go for it.
Yes. I'm so empowered right now. I really am. I'm like ready for December 3rd, but thank you again, Susan.
That's great.
We have, as Susan mentioned, and as we mentioned earlier, we have Olivia Harden, Susan's colleague. She is the program specialist for MIUSA, and Olivia has worked in the field of international education for over 10 years. At MIUSA, her primary responsibilities include providing technical assistance to support students with disabilities in the U.S., in U.S. Department of State exchange programs, and being a part of the core team that hosts exchange students with disabilities for disability-related orientations in Oregon. Olivia's articles have appeared in many publications such as Education USA Connections and Global Study Magazine. Welcome, Olivia.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Iron, for having us, and thank you, Susan, for making that great video. I'm excited to be here today to talk more about how YES Alumni can create a more inclusive alumni community of people with disabilities.
Thank you.
And let's see, do you have the PowerPoint or the PDF?
Yes, and as we're getting your presentation queued up here, Olivia, we just would like you to please just share a little bit about why did you decide to do this webinar with us?
And before you start, Hannah and I are gonna vanish for a little bit, and as we pull up your PDF for you.
Yes.
And everyone, again, we encourage you to add your comments and questions in the chat box.
Yeah.
Making sure that your settings are set to all panelists and attendees.
Awesome.
Well, yeah, and I am so excited to join the webinar because it's always great to connect with alumni of the YES program, because we always see the students before they come, when they're first coming to the United States. And so hearing from alumni is always such a treat, and being able to interact with them and share some of the things that we've learned from past alumni, and share a little bit about our another project that we have that I'll talk about, the NCDE. So I'm just really psyched to be here today. It's very early here on the East Coast. I'm sure it's different times for different people around where everybody is. So I still may be waking up a little bit as I talk. I think there are some YES alumni with disabilities on this webinar. And so I wanted to talk a little bit directly to you about getting involved in your community. You're on this webinar, so it shows you're already somewhat engaged, but just some other ideas that we've heard from past alumni. And something that Susan was talking about in her video is that when she did her exchange program, she identified a community need to have more people with disabilities in international exchange. And then she came back and she created our organization, MIUSA. And I think that a lot of her point is to be proactive and to apply for grants and start your own projects. Another important part of that is look around at the disabled people's organizations, or DPOs, around you in your community. Maybe they're already doing something that's trying to address the problem, and how can you collaborate with them and further the work that's already being done. Sometimes I know alumni have some nervousness about getting involved with different communities um, because of needing accommodations. And I would encourage all YES alumni, if you need an accommodation, to become involved, to ask for what you need. Whether it's an accommodation at an office or to make an event accessible, if you need materials in an accessible format, contacting the YES staff and letting them know so that they can help you to be able to access the information. And then for both planning your own projects or programs and also getting the accommodations you need, use what you learned about disability rights and observed about inclusive practices in the United States to help you in your home community. Next slide. So those of you who are on the webinar who don't have a disability, you still have such an important role to play in creating an inclusive alumni community. There are several things that you can do, and one of the most important ones is using inclusive language in all of your event invitations or materials, letting people with disabilities know that they are welcome and that you are thinking about accessibility. And it's a very important indicator that can be very encouraging for people with disabilities. It can be anything from please contact us for more information on accessibility to Braille and sign language interpreters available upon request. Now, some of you may have never thought about accessibility in your events or your office spaces. So it could be a little bit daunting to think about ensuring that you have accessible events. And that's totally normal, and we see that all the time. So if you need help, our advice is ask. Ask alumni with disabilities, or if you're not sure who to ask, reach out to local disabled people's organizations, or DPOs. And DPOs are organizations that serve people with disabilities and are run by people with disabilities. They may even be willing to send someone out to your office or your event, help you walk around, answer questions, look at what you need. If you aren't sure who your alumni with disabilities are, seek them out, ask your local YES staff if you can be connected with them. And then once you're connected with them, you can learn about their experiences. You can invite them for coffee where both of you could talk about your experiences and share how your exchange in the United States impacted you. You can invite an alumni with a disability to present for all YES alumni. And another way to reach out to people with disabilities is to collaborate and brainstorm. What projects or what areas are common interests? Whether or not it's related to disability, what projects could you do together? And what presentations could you maybe do together that at schools or other venues? Next slide, please. One very important way to increase the number of alumni with disabilities, one very important way to create a more inclusive community is to increase the number of alumni with disabilities. And that is something that YES alumni can have a really important role in. We know that a lot of YES alumni do volunteering at organizations that work with people with disabilities. And when you're doing that volunteering or running programs, you talk about your own experience, but then also talk about that as an experience that is possible for the youth with disabilities in that organization. Just letting them know, like, this is a possibility for me too. And that can make a big impact. The earlier the better, obviously, because YES does have eligibility requirements, and people with disabilities may not have had as much access to the education they need to be able to meet those requirements. One thing if somebody's interested in the YES program and they think it sounds really great, making sure they know that the English is an important requirement. So they need to get on that learning English if they're going to meet the requirements and eligibility later on. Also, you may encounter families or people with disabilities who are nervous about youth with disabilities going to the United States because they'll be away from their support networks. And I would say, you know, Susan talked a lot about described how all the YES students with disabilities come to Oregon. But also to expand on that, MIUSA and YES staff work very closely together to provide support throughout the program. So even before the students get here, or when things happen on the program in the United States, there's actually quite a lot of support for students with disabilities. And it's a really great model for creating a more inclusive exchange program. Okay, next slide. Just switching gears a little bit, I wanted to tell you about the National Clearinghouse on Disability and Exchange that's at MIUSA. It's a project that's also sponsored by the U.S. Department of State, Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs. And its objective is to increase participation of people with disabilities in international exchange. So it's a more general, it's available to any person with a disability or anybody at all who has questions about disability and international exchange. For this audience, I think there would be two great uses that I could think of off the bat. It would be a resource for if you're talking to a person with a disability who may be really excited about the idea of going abroad to the United States, but may not be eligible for YES. You can point them in the direction of the NCDE as a place where they can find resources and get support. Also, for YES alumni with disabilities who are eventually interested in doing another exchange, you are also welcome to contact the NCDE. Next slide, please. So the NCDE has a lot of great resources on their website, MIUSA.org, and it has disability-specific tip sheets, stories, best practices for both people with disabilities and for professionals. I would suggest using the search function on the website in order to find things that you're looking for, but also if you're not sure you're finding the right resources, it is great to contact them directly with questions or a request for information. And next slide, please. I can show you here is the contact information for the NCDE. First up there is the clearinghouse at MIUSA.org email. And then the next three hashtag terms that you see below it, you can search on social media or on browser search engines such as Google, and it will bring up information related to the hashtag. So the first one, Access to USA, hashtag Access to USA, is general information about increasing the numbers of people with disabilities coming to the United States for exchanges. The next one, hashtag Life After Exchange, I think would be particularly interesting for YES alumni with disabilities because it really looks at the long-term impact of exchange for people with disabilities, including how people with disabilities have used their exchange experiences to get to get employment or to help find employment, and then also how it's helped them in their employment. So a lot of interesting things there for people who have already done exchanges. The last one, hashtag Access Languages, addresses experiences of language learning for people with disabilities. So thank you all for listening. With or without disabilities, the fact that you are here and thinking about these issues is so important. And we're excited to learn what you do next. Thanks a lot.
Yes, thank you so much, Olivia, for that. Thank you. Super informative.
Yeah, and I'm excited to hear Celine next.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Olivia will join us later in the Q&A session at the very end if all of you participants have any questions for her. But I think that was really informative and helpful for us to know. And I think another great point that I really liked learning about was knowing that MIUSA is offering support for students to go on exchange even beyond the YES program, right? So they can share out that information to their peers who are interested in pursuing exchange through other programs, or, you know, YES students who want to go on exchange again. Like, what a wonderful resource that we have available.
Amazing. And one of the things that really that stuck with me is inclusive language. I think that's something that we all need to remember at times when we're doing workshops or even beyond, yes, like you said, remembering to use inclusive language is not just about the bigger picture, but also those little things. So,
yes,
awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that knowledge.
Great. So now we also have our alumna speaker ready, who is Celine Lin Yu Lin from YES 2013-2014, and she is a visually alumna who launched the Gift of Sight Community Project to produce holistic and accessible educational materials for students at the Setapak Special School for the Blind in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and to raise awareness about persons with disabilities. Celine is also very much committed to strengthening her alumni community by volunteering at YES Alumni Malaysia and participating in several alumni projects. I also want to say personally that I had heard from many other staff and alumni about this really, really active, wonderful alumna named Celine. And so you can only imagine how really pumped up I was to actually get to work with her on this webinar.
She's amazing. And I think the world will realize that like in 10 seconds. Celine, are you there?
Yep. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, thank you. Greetings from Malaysia. I'm very grateful for this opportunity to share, and I hope this will be a light in the dark, so to speak. So if we can move on to the second slide. Once again, I'm Celine from Malaysia.
Celine,
and I'm a...
1 second, we're just going to pull up your presentation.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Celine is ready to go.
MIUSA.
All right.
Great. And now your presentation is up.
Okay, so are we on the second slide?
Yes, we are.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm Celine from Malaysia again. I'm a student of about 19 years old. I'm also a person with disability. Specifically, I am totally blind. Okay, next slide. All right. So my journey with AFS started when I was 15, whereby I went on the Kennedy-Lugar Youth Exchange and Study Program, the YES program, and I am of the YES 14 batch. My placement organization was AFS USA, the Miss Tanky area chapter, and I was hosted in Nashville, Tennessee. And I was in whole school. My whole school was Tennessee School for the Blind. Okay, next. Right, that was just a brief introduction to my YES experience. My YES experience in many ways has been truly an eye-opener. And above all, the highlight is that it really inflamed a passion in me. It made me believe and dare to hope that change, that progress and development is in our own hands. Well, first of all, I must say that as a developing country here in Malaysia, accessibility and equal opportunity for people with disabilities, well, unfortunately, it is rather inadequate, let alone efficient. So, of course, we have to be pretty much grateful because we are better. At least we get to go to school, for example, as compared to elsewhere. But the resources and facilities is very, very limited. So when I went to the US, I was incredibly inspired by how people with disabilities have such opportunities and accessibility. Of course, as a YES student, I had an orientation with MIUSA, and that really sparked a flame in me, starting from my arrival orientation in the US. Absolutely, they inspired me to speak out for my rights, and it really inspired me to advocate. And from this, I actually have a goal, a mission in life to pursue legal studies and eventually specialize in human rights and improve disability access here in Malaysia. Moving on, apart from that, my family, my host family, was very supportive, and AFS USA really chose me a wonderful family, and they had friends and some contacts with the blind community, for instance, and I get to learn a lot from there. And more so that my school, being the School for the Blind in Tennessee, has really gave me a great exposure. I've done a lot of activities that I never could have dreamed of in Malaysia, that the blind could never do here. You know, for example, I learned to swim there. Well, trivial it may seem, but you know, it was an exciting experience. And of course, the community is highly accessible, and you know, it really shows me that how persons with disabilities are able to be independent and able to feel that we are not in, you know, we are not out of our, sorry about that. Yeah, we get to feel that we are in control of our own movements, of our own life, you see. So all this is really inspiring. And I think most of all for me, my YES experience is that I really love the spirit of volunteerism. This really ingrained great values in any student who goes through the program. We get to feel empathy and compassion. So yeah, moving on to the next slide. So here, after my YES program, when I came back, as an alumni, I actively volunteered in whatever activities that YES Alumni Malaysia or AFS organizes. Because to me, I feel even if by simply participating and joining, I am able to show other people, the sighted community, that, you know, even a person with disability is able to participate in such events. And also, I have been helping out by facilitating and, you know, like orientation camps, like pre-departure orientations, post-return, and national selection camps to prepare students who are going on the YES program in future. I also work a lot with YES alumni in the field of disability outreach. Now, what this is about mainly is to expand the reach of YES to the community of people with disability. This is where I try my best to encourage more students with disability to apply for the program. Okay, for instance, I keep very close touch with counselors from schools for disabilities, for example, like the School for the Blind. And I work together with the counselor to help the students apply. Well, understandably, as students have very little access to any facilities and so on, so they need help, especially in fields like this, sometimes to boost their confidence, to give them motivation, and tell them to you know, be encouraged to apply. And then after they apply, when they come to camps and all that, I will be there to make sure that they get equal access and opportunities during the sessions. I try to make them as accessible as possible. For instance, this year, during the national selection camp, during their tests for English language, and during the activities, I try to provide handouts in Braille, and also give them the necessary accommodations for that would suit them, be it whether they are blind or they are deaf, or other needs. Okay, and then now most of all, apart from working together with YES to reach out to more disabled people out there, is that I started a project of myself, of my own, a community project called the Gift of Sight, which has been mentioned earlier. So the Gift of Sight basically aims, sorry, are we at the next slide?
Yes,
okay.
we are.
So the Gift of Sight here is a program that has been aimed at increasing holistic study materials for the blind. So what we do in this generally is where we recruit volunteers to come together and try to learn about, for instance, the world of the blind. And then this is where they produce materials. Now, what do? They start to create tactile diagrams, for instance, and also type out books into accessible formats. This work is also done alongside increasing their awareness towards our community, because I believe that a balance must be struck. Not only that we get them to help, but also they must understand, because only by understanding will they have the compassion and empathy, and therefore they would be more inspired to give a helping hand and increase accessibility and equal opportunities for the blind. So during these sessions where they come and they create tactile diagrams and also type out books, we have other sessions for them. For instance, we took them around a tour around the school to show them about how blind people study, and also show them, for instance, the Braille typewriter, and we also exposed them to computers and screen readers. Well, they were very amazed to see computers talking. And also we demonstrated, we engaged students with visual impairment to play goal ball, which is an international sports for the blind. And then after a demonstration, we got the volunteers to, volunteer. And then we blindfold them and have them have an experience of playing goal ball, for instance, so that they know how it feels. And so on, these kind of activities. So this program was initiated in 2016, where we mainly engage YES alumni and AFS returnees to join and volunteer for this project. This year, I have been expanding the work to further outside to the community. So for example, where there is a team building camp for teenagers or other students, or perhaps companies having development programs, I ask them for a session, a single session perhaps, say about 2 hours, and I talk about a little bit about how people with visual impairment have very limited resources and everything, and get them moved, and then that's where we get them hands-on experience and help out to make more tactile diagrams. Now these diagrams will be later on given to the school, and then the school will be able to use it to teach the students, and also enable blind teachers to help out teaching. So yeah, and next year I plan to expand this project further, wherein perhaps it will be a day session, and we'll call on for volunteers to come on and have a day of experiencing how visual impairment is. This is where we'll blindfold the volunteers and teach them to walk with a white cane, for example, eat in the dark, and also a Braille workshop. So this will be next year. And by this, I hope that awareness can truly be achieved by actually putting themselves in our shoes, so to speak. Yeah, that's the Gift of Sight project. It's really been an experience for me, and truly it's been an exciting journey, which I hope to carry on to further future and expand much, much more than just this. Okay, next. All right, so if you want to find out more about the Gift of Sight, if you want to find out more about this project, here, please visit this link. The first link here will take you to our YES Alumni Malaysia WordPress blog. It's an article that I wrote reflecting on this project. And the second link here, if you click on it, you will be taken to our YouTube channel, and you'll be able to view a slideshow that I compiled of photos and photos of the Gift of Sight 2016. So yeah, so even though last year was just more to YES alumni and AFS returnee, and this year is to outside, hopefully that this will be able to combine a helping hand from all aspects of community and increase the welfare of people with disabilities. And I hope to expand further than just visual impairment to other disabilities as well in future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Celine, for that. Oh my goodness. You are such a phenomenal asset to the entire alumni community, and we just want to thank you for joining us and sharing all of the amazing, commendable work you've been doing for students and your own peers with disabilities. I told you, phenomenal.
I already knew that. But yes, also I really appreciated that, you know, not only are you taking your YES experience and transforming that in a way that you can reach out to your community locally, but also that you're taking the time and effort to educate persons without disabilities too, so that we can learn to be more inclusive in our everyday life. So thank you again for speaking out, for sharing your testimonial, and for all the great work that you have and continue to do.
Yes.
Thank you.
We have a lot of comments here. I think we have a comment saying, what an incredible project. Thank you for sharing, Celine.
We also do want to share, I know Celine shared those great links at the very end of her PowerPoint. We did create those links into shorter bit.ly links so that you can access them very quickly. If you want to read the blog on the alumni website, learning more about Celine's project, Gift of Sight, you can go to bit.ly, bit.ly /Celine, CELINE blog, one word. And then you can also access the video that Celine mentioned on bit.ly, bit.ly /Celine, CELINE video, one word.
Thank you, Gloria.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we are Celine fans. So now we just want to bring Olivia back as well from MIUSA for our short little Q&A session. So if this is your first time joining a YES alumni webinar, this is a part of the webinar where we give everyone watching, whether you're in the webinar room or watching from Facebook Live, a chance to ask any questions you have for Olivia and for Celine. So yes, please feel free to comment your questions. We have about 5 minutes to do our short little Q&A. So you can ask any questions you'd like.
I'd just like to make a quick comment that Celine, I really enjoyed hearing about your project. So thank you for sharing that. That was a very cool project you're doing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you, MIUSA, for sparking the flame, the first one.
So much panelist love.
Yes, that really our hearts. We do have a question here in the webinar room. Gloria, would you like to read it out?
Sure. We have a question from M. Olson. What accommodations can YES students receive to help them be successful on program? So I guess this would be in addition to some of the accommodations that, Olivia, you covered that the students also received through MIUSA.
And Celine, do you want to talk about accommodations you received?
You can go ahead first, maybe. I'll add in later, maybe.
Sure, I'll add some, and maybe Celine can chime in. Accommodations that YES students receive are sometimes very similar to accommodations that US students receive in their US classrooms. So anything from the use of elevators in school buildings or ramps into school buildings. In most US schools, those are built in, those are required to be built in. Many students who are deaf who come on the program go to a school for the deaf. but also even if they don't, they would get sign language interpreters in their classroom, or if they have hearing aids, maybe captioning, which is, they would have a screen that would show the words of the teacher while the teacher is talking, so that, or perhaps sometimes a note taker for them to take notes while so they can focus on looking at the teacher instead of and trying to hear while taking the notes. Other things students have received are, I'm trying to think for different disabilities. If a student has a learning disability, they might receive extra time on tests. There's a very wide range of accommodations that students can receive, and I think it's always determined on a case-by-case basis. Celine, what kind of accommodations do you receive?
Yeah, thank you. I feel that MIUSA has made sure that every aspect of our needs is fulfilled. So even from the beginning, from the orientation, handouts were provided in Braille for me, and also a lot of other support network. They work closely with our placement organization, our host school. So when I was in the US, I had actually a chance of going to a normal high school, so to speak, in an integrated program for about almost 2 weeks to shadow a normal student, to see how other disabled students study in a sighted community environment. And I see that a lot of facilities has been provided, even in such a short period of time. They made sure that I am able to follow in class and everything. So really every aspect that is in need to enable us to have accessibility and be independent. So yeah.
How did you get to school, Celine? Did you use a white cane or?
Oh yes, I use a white cane, and MIUSA actually worked with my liaison officer, and to ensure that how I get to school and everything would be smooth and friendly to blind.
Awesome.
That's great. Thank
Yeah,
you.
Thank you. I want to continue this conversation like for an hour more. I wish we could. But this has been amazing. Do we want to take one more question, or do?
Yeah. Great. We have another question. Let's see. Oh, this is a really great one.
Mm-hmm.
What are some obstacles that YES applicants with disabilities face during the application process?
It's a really good question.
And how can we all work together to overcome these obstacles so that more students with disabilities can apply? And, as Susan mentioned, that we are able to get more students with disabilities on program.
Yeah.
May I share about this?
Please.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, so most YES students understandably come from countries that are less accessible than America. So here in Malaysia, when I was applying for the program, we had to sit for tests and all sorts of things. Back then, the application forms were in paper form, so to speak. So I can't read them. And during the test, I had to use a reader and someone to read out to me. And the difference between having someone to read to you compared to actually having it in your hands is very different. So this is a difficulty that students with visual impairment face. And for the students with hearing impaired, I noticed that the listening test is simply omitted for them. Yes, we can omit students from tests, but that would be a little, to my opinion, a bit unfair because we are not included in it. So when the following years after my program year, when I came back, students, there are more visual impaired students who applied. And I think we received a book for the test, question book in Braille, but only one copy. So this year we had like 5 students who used Braille in the national selection camp, and they did not have the book, the question book sufficiently. So what I had to do is that I had to personally Braille out the question paper all over again for a few copies. And then the students are able to take the test and given extra time. And also, sometimes it is difficult in the sense because students with visual impairment, they don't necessarily use computers. Sometimes they prefer to use Braille, or sometimes they just don't have access to IT. So they had to use Braille typewriters. And the difficulty about this is that the team, let's say like AFS or the YES alumni who is helping out with the selection camp, does not necessarily have the skill to transcribe. So this is where alumni like myself will have to play a huge role to help out and give them as much equal opportunity as possible, because we don't want lack of accessibility to be a hindrance, to prevent them from succeeding in their application. So yeah.
And I can add to that. I think actually Selena just touched on a whole bunch of great tips that, or great ways to overcome obstacles.
Yes.
Being creative, working together, educating each other and staff and students, so that we can learn how to, if we don't have an accessible test one year, how can we change that to make sure it's accessible the next year? What do we need to do to make sure that there's enough Braille, or that the testing center is in an accessible location? And that takes some forethought and planning, I think, is an important way to overcome a lot of the obstacles.
True.
I also think, yeah, I think one obstacle to students with disabilities, that's a sort of a bigger picture obstacle, is access to education even before they're applying for the program, in order to be eligible. So learning English to a level that would make them eligible, sometimes people with disabilities may be older in their grades, so that may throw off the age requirements. And I know in the past there has been some working with students with disabilities to try to occasionally make exceptions, but that's really on a case-by-case basis, I believe. Also, I think, as Celine pointed out, the alumni are so important in this, and in really coming back and saying, yes, this needs to be accessible for more students, and I'm going to help make that happen. So it's great hearing all the work Celine has done in that way.
Thank you so much, ladies. This has been so informative and inspiring. Thankfully, we are recording, as I said, so if you missed this webinar, you can always go to yesprograms.org to watch it again. We are going to launch one more poll, and as Gloria is launching that poll, please find us on our website to submit a story. If you're organizing a project or getting ready to execute a project in celebration of International Day of Persons with Disabilities on December 3rd, please share your story with us and the result and the outcome of your wonderful projects. You can go to yesprograms.org to read more or submit your story. Also on Facebook, we are on Facebook right now live. Hello to everyone that's live. Youth Exchange and Study is our Facebook name, and you can also find us on Instagram, yes.program, and we are on Twitter, Yes Program News. We are so branded. It's amazing.
We try.
Yes.
Yeah. But again, thank you, ladies, so much for your time. I know it's very early in the East Coast.
Yes.
It's very late in Malaysia.
I know.
We appreciate you sharing your perspective. It's truly so valuable to us. And is there a way that maybe people can reach out to you if they're interested?
Yeah, I will type my email in the chat box here.
Great.
Yes.
I'll also say Ohardin, OHARDIN, at MIUSA, MIUSA.org.
Thank you, Olivia.
Awesome. Thank you.
And if you're watching on Facebook, remember the video stays. So please feel free to continue to ask questions, and we'll try our best to answer them throughout the day.
Great. Thank you so much, everybody, and I hope you all have a good one.
Thank you, Celine, and thank you so much, Olivia, for joining.
Thank you.